Philosophers love talking about objects and their properties, but it always ends up in a mess. The Oxford philosopher F.H. Bradley brought out that as soon as we assume that objects and properties exist independently, we can't make sense of how they ever belong together. This problem is known as Bradley's regress. Now take a lump of sugar, that's Bradley's example. The sugar is white. Whiteness is a property of the sugar, philosophers like to say, just as its sweetness is. Now, objects and properties are taken to be fundamentally distinct kinds of things. All right, if we assume that, we can ask, what is the relation between them? But what is this relation, having a property that holds between the lump and the whiteness? Well, that relation itself must be just another property of the lump. It is the property of having the property of whiteness. But then we should ask, what's the relation between the lump and the property of having the property of whiteness? Clearly also that relation is just another property. It is the property of having the property of having the property of whiteness. And now it gets repetitive, because what is the relation between the lump and that property? You see the problem. This will go on forever. As soon as you treat properties as entities distinct from the lump of sugar itself, then you'll never be able to explain why this property belongs to this lump and not to a lump of brown sugar, say. Every explanation you try to give raises a question of exactly the same form. As so often, instead of learning a lesson, philosophers have taken Bradley's argument as a challenge. A large number of trees have been killed just to publish attempts at avoiding this regress problem. And personally, I haven't been impressed with the results. Bradley's point wasn't to invite his colleagues to help him solve a problem. It was clear to him that the very distinction between objects and properties ultimately proves incoherent. And he wasn't the first to urge this lesson on the philosophical community. Ultimately, the lesson is this: the world isn't composed out of independently existing things. The world is not some big jigsaw puzzle. What's really puzzling is why people nonetheless feel this need to keep on positing these distinctions.